Hello there, Jeremiah Poop, your friendly Boston tour guide in colonial gear, hanging out on Boston Common before my tour. A few weeks ago, people sometimes ask me, have you ever had like Amish people on your tour? Well, yes, I have a few times, not often, and they're always lovely. They tend to be very good tippers, actually. I actually had to do a bus tour for a bunch of Amish people about 15 years ago, and they were just incredible tippers, actually. Remind me to tell you sometime about my days doing bus tours, because there are some stories there, both in costume and out, for the tours. I remember once I had to do a bus tour for 8th graders from Eden, New York, I think. It was a great group, but one of the teachers was actually dating one of the Buffalo Bills, and so we actually had like a current NFL football player as a chaperone for the kids on the tour. I mean, it was like some sort of bad Disney movie where it's like, he's an NFL star and now he's chaperoning 8th graders or something. It was kind of surreal, but it was a wonderful group. Definitely one of the most memorable in my entire career, actually. So yeah, I had some interesting bus tour groups, but that's all a story for another day, I suppose. But yeah, a few weeks ago, I actually had an Amish family on my tour. They were very nice, and they gave me their ticket. We were out front of the Boston Common Visitor Center where my tours usually begin, and I had to excuse myself for about 5 minutes to attend to something. And when I returned, they looked so relieved that I was back, and I'm like, what's wrong? And they said, well, for the last 5 minutes, everybody's been coming up to us and trying to give us their tickets, because they apparently thought that the Amish people were the tour guides because of the old-fashioned outfits and stuff, so that was a little awkward for them. And I remember the dad said, you've probably never had Amish people on your tour before. Whoops, sorry. He said, the dad said, you've probably never had Amish people on your tour before. And I said, au contraire, it doesn't happen often, but I have. And I actually told him a little story, which was before I was a tour guide, I was actually a clerk in a gift shop down at Faneuil Hall Quincy Market. I know we say clerk over here, but I like the British pronunciation better. I like Clark. I think Clark sounds cooler, don't you? So I'll say Clark. But this guy came in once, and this is probably like 2000, so like 25 years ago, and he was like had all these tattoos and piercings, and he looked like kind of a skater punk kid. And he like bought some little souvenir, and he hands me his credit card, and I looked at him like, oh, you're Amish, huh? And he like looked shocked. He's like, yeah, how do you know? And I said, because only an Amish person would have a last name like Yoder. And so I told the Amish family that, and they stayed very, stone-faced, and like, Yoder is our last name. And the wife said, actually, Yoder was also my maiden name, so I didn't even have to change my name when I got married. And her husband said, yeah, it's one of the many benefits of marrying your cousin. And so it turned out they had their 3 kids with them, and their names were Jacob and Emma and Caleb. And I met them. And then when they were introducing them, this woman from Chicago was there with her husband and kids, and she's like, did you say your kids' names are Jacob and Emma and Caleb? Because my kids' names are Jacob and Emma and Caleb too. And so we had this interesting, almost cultural exchange where the modern Jacob, Emma, and Caleb from Chicago met the Amish Jacob, Emma, and Caleb from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, or wherever they were from. And I thought, imagine if it was like one of those Disney movies, like a Freaky Friday, where like they somehow switch bodies, and like the modern Jacob, Emma, and Caleb have to like live the Amish life, and the Amish Jacob and Emma and Caleb have to live, the modern life or whatever. And I actually told them that, but nobody laughed. I guess it wasn't very funny.